There we go. No need to stand no need to dress up for the occasion. Come as you are. Okay, so here we are, continuing our studies of Rav Ginzburg's book, The Twinkle in Your Eye. It's always attractive, maintaining that twinkle. We're going to learn how to get that twinkle going, because that's all you really need to get that fresh look. Right. Okay, so we'll just review about a page. So chapter 5, page 55, we'll just go over that part about the mezuzah. Remember, for those who were here last week. Okay, so it's subtitled, Don't Knock at Death's Door. I think the subtitles are supposed to be a bit whimsical. Aha, don't knock on death's door. It's a kind of funny joke. Don't feel you have to laugh right away. You can slowly laugh as we go on. Oh, great, more people. This is getting better and better. I have a better and better time. The more people, I see that human contact, yes. Okay, the mitzvah of mezuzah, page 55 for those who are part of the book club. And I want to look inside, no pressure. If we're looking for a Hebrew letter that expresses the idea of older age, there is no better candidate than the letter Zion. Rav Dov Ber, the Maggid of Mezerich, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, taught that the verse from Proverbs, from Mishlei, a woman of valor is the crown of her husband, alludes to the letter Zion, because the Zion is similar to a Vav in that it's a straight line, but it has a crown on top, just like the woman is a crown. Yes, indeed, the two words, remember, which is Zachor, and age, which is Zaken, both begin with the letter Zion, which is not commonly found at the beginning of a word. See, we can learn that from Rav Ginzburg. We might not have noticed, we might not have kept track so well, which is a usual letter for the beginning of a word. And now we find out that Zion is not so common. When we contemplate words that include this letter, we find that the word doorpost, mezuzah, contains two letters Zion. This is one very significant word in the Hebrew language that relates both to memory and to aging, what we're learning about in this book. In general, mezuzah refers to the mitzvah of mezuzah, the mitzvah to attach to our doorpost a parchment on which is inscribed the quintessential statement of monotheism, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. In case anyone asks you for that quintessential statement of Yiddishkeit, it's true, Shema Yisrael is really a big one. And again, we spoke about how monotheism doesn't mean that we have one God and not a lot of little gods, but it means there's nothing else but God. All is God, God is everything. That's Shema Yisrael. The first time mezuzah appears in the Torah is when Hashem commanded the Israelites in Egypt to paint the blood of the Pesach sacrifice on their doorposts. Remember that? This was so that the plague that killed all the Egyptian firstborns would pass over them. Passover, that's Pesach. Indeed, the sages teach us that the letters of the word, of this word, the plural of mezuzah, mezuzos, are a permutation of the phrase zaz maves, death moves on, or death moves away. That's from Tikkun Zohar, from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which alludes to the special quality of the mezuzah to deter death. This is particularly applicable in older age, when a person becomes more aware of what he calls the looming shadow of death. Right, so I guess we do appreciate life more. That's it's good to appreciate life more, like each moment, each breath. Yes, okay. So that's the mezuzah. Regarding the mitzvah of mezuzah, Sefer HaChinuch explicitly relates it to remembering Hashem. And I think this has really helped me, because when I prepared this last night, the idea that the mezuzah is to help us remember Hashem. And many people, I haven't had this custom. I always admire people that do this, people that touch a mezuzah every time they pass by, when they come in and when they go out, they touch the mezuzah. The Rebbe would always touch the mezuzah. Some people even kiss their hands after they touch the mezuzah, or they lift up little children to kiss the mezuzah, which is a minhag. And that's a minhagim, customs are really important. That's why at the Pesach Seder, the Chabad custom is to say about why do we dip twice on this night? Not why are we eating matzah, but why do we dip twice? Because it's a minhag. Matzah is a mitzvah from the Torah, but dipping is a minhag because children are really touched deeply by minhagim. It's customs, kissing the mezuzah. And remembering Hashem, that's the reason to touch the mezuzah or kiss the mezuzah, is to remember Hashem. Okay, quote. We're on the middle of page 56 for those who just tuned in. This mitzvah is to be a reminder to the individual of his faith in Hashem at all times when he enters his home or leaves it, or when you walk in from one room to another. To remember our emunah in Hashem, because we do forget it. And the mitzvahs are supposed to help us remember it with their two Zions. So this indicates that as we grow older, meticulously observing the mitzvah of mezuzah can relieve the main trepidation of aging, fear of death, and serve as an antidote to forgetting Hashem, which is the source of all forgetfulness. So that's as far as we got last time, but I think it's worth going over. It's saying something so deep. What is the source of all forgetfulness? Forgetting Hashem. So we want to remember Hashem, and we need clues because life is so distracting. You know, like today I was worried that our ceiling was falling down, but luckily we had a repairman come and fix it. But, you know, sometimes we can get distracted by the ceiling falling down and forget Hashem and other things, inner ceilings, outer ceilings. So the mezuzah is to remind us to remember Hashem, not to forget Hashem, and forgetting Hashem is the source of all forgetfulness, which I guess is a very important idea. Okay, so now it's new material, the bottom half of page 56. We noted that the upper union of the father and mother principles corresponds to the letters Yud and Hey in Hashem's essential name. The first two letters of Hashem's name, the Yud, Chachma, and the Hey, Bina, it's masculine and feminine. This is related to the higher and relatively more feminine aspect of spirituality that we should all aspire to as we age, being receptive. Isn't that a good quality? It's always good. People appreciate it. As mentioned, this level is alluded to by the letter Zion, with its crown on top, and the woman is the crown of her husband. In the mitzvah of mezuzah, the idea is particularly apparent since the two doorposts represent the merit of the avos, of the patriarchs and the matriarchs, the avos and the imaos, the father and mother principles. It's a quote from the Klei Yakar, who wrote all his commentaries for his daughters. He taught them Chumash. The mezuzah is attached to the doorpost on the right as we enter the room. The father principle relates to the right hemisphere of the brain, and to our left as we leave the room. Okay, and the mother principle is the left hemisphere. Now, so we noticed that, but to remember to touch the mezuzah, which is going to be the homework assignment for this week. Take notes, write it in your homework journal, that we want to remember to touch the mezuzah, whether you decide to kiss it, no pressure there, but touching it. It's good to touch it. It's like a good, remember, and when we touch it, to remember Hashem, it's like a clue here in our distracting world, going in and going out. It's hard to do it. I've noticed it. Although I really want to, it's hard to remember, but let's try. Because we remember Hashem, and that's the key to all remembering. Okay, bottom paragraph. This once again alludes to the need to become more feminine during the aging process. As we are on our way into the world, in our youth, we are relatively masculine. And as we are on our way as older, we become more feminine, more receptive. Something funny just happened to my view. Let's fix that. Gallery. Okay, we're back. Okay, so now we're starting chapter 6, page 57, making Torah study a routine. Okay. Many older individuals report that having a regular daily or even weekly routine is an essential component in their lives. Many become set in their ways, so much so that a change in their routine may put them out of sync for days afterwards. In Hasidus, order, seder is the word for order, is of utmost importance. You know, there was something very popular in Israel, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, about drawers. If you organize your drawers, does anyone remember? Then you kind of get your whole mind organized. I find it is true, and I'm very energetic and organize a drawer, clean out the lint from the corners, put all the tapes, whatever, especially that junk drawer. It really does help. It makes an order. So making an order in the simplest level of getting the drawers in order to getting our mind in order, the ultimate challenge, have orderly thoughts. Okay. In Hasidus, order is of utmost importance. This does not only relate to developing a daily routine as taught by the Musar movement, but also refers to nurturing an orderly soul. Nurturing an orderly soul. As Rabbi Shmuel of Lubavitch, the Rebbe Maharash once said, the Baal Shem Tov was systematic and orderly. The Maggid, his successor, insisted on order, and my great-grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, taught his Hasidim to be orderly. We see this in his discourses, letters, and melodies. And this sounds familiar. It's actually the Hayom Yom for the 7th day of the month of Tammuz, if it sounds like we might have seen this before. So being orderly it's a good thing. It's a really, you know, on every level, we can see it ourselves when, you know, it's one of the big pluses of having Shabbos every week. One actually has to clear the table. I have an old friend from before I was from, and I've been from for 47 years. So, you know, it means really, it's good to keep in touch with those old friends. It takes a little effort, but it's worth it. But I have an old friend who's not from, and on her dining, so not making Shabbos, not having Shabbos, she says she never actually clears her dining room table. There's like, no, she just puts like the mail, the this, the bills, the vitamin pills, whatever. But Shabbos actually forces us to clear the dining room table, to make order. It's like only at least once a week, at least some level, right? An improvement. It's endless. It is endless, as we know from cleaning for Pesach. There's no real end to making order, but we know the difference. Okay, so being orderly. A Torah life includes a definite structure that can ease the difficulties often associated with growing older. Living according to the Torah can redeem us from our distress by offering a routine that many elders thrive on. The following, so this routine, you know, I mean, it's really incorporated, like when we wake up in the morning, it's alavai that the first conscious thought should be Moda Ani, thanking Hashem for bringing our soul back, for that we're still alive, yay. And then washing Negelwasser. I learned when I first became from 47 years ago to keep it by the side of my bed. I remember actually when I first came to Crown Heights, when I sort of kind of just moved in there and became from, but when I first came, I really knew nothing about Yiddishkeit. And I also had a dog. They were very kind, the young girls who took me in with my dog, and they brought me Negelwasser and put it by the side of the bed. And the dog started laughing it up. They were not happy about that. And a friend, my old friend called it, and I said, oh no, the dog is drinking the Negelwasser. And she said, what did you just say? It's hard to explain exactly. But, you know, we train our dogs not to drink the Negelwasser, and certainly not to breathe on it even. But there is the structure of the day. Moda ani Nagelwasser. It's good to say brachas in the morning before eating. I mean, the whole day that, it's like shacharis, mincha, and then chitas. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do to get that day properly organized. This is infinite. Again, it's an infinite thing. Okay, now, the following suggested outline for this routine is based on the 6 times that the phrase, a time of distress, which is in Hebrew, 8 Sora, 8 or ace means time, and Sora, tzadik reish hey, means distress. So it appears 6 times in Tanakh, in the Bible, each of which is accompanied either explicitly or implicitly by salvation from distress. So we're going to look now at the 6 times a time of distress is in Tanakh and how we are saved each time. Okay, here's the first one, connected with getting up in the morning. The first time the phrase, a time of distress, Eis Surah, appears is in the book of Yeshayahu, chapter 33, line 2. We say to Hashem, be our arm every morning, also our salvation in a time of distress. Every morning we must think how the King of Kings is standing over us and be in awe of his glory. So to bring this more forward in our consciousness, it's hard to make that a part of the homework assignment, but I think it's really important, like to remember Hashem. And it's more than, I could remember to say Moda Ani, but to actually remember, it's not just saying it, it's actually remembering Hashem while saying it. And he's standing, to be in awe of Hashem. By doing so, we receive the lion's strength necessary to overcome our inclination to continue sleeping. So that I saw as a chiddush. I never really thought of as Moda Ani, giving me strength. I think that's an important idea, that it's giving us strength. We need that strength to get out of bed. However, as we get older, getting up in the morning may become more difficult. So it is necessary for Hashem to take hold of our hand and help us out of bed. So that's another visualization. Yes, Hashem is taking my hand and helping me out of bed. It should be clear to us from the moment we awaken that Hashem is there to support us, even in our time of distress. And I guess that's a very important Hasidic idea. Some people could grow up with an idea, God forbid, that Hashem is there to punish us. That's not really a very healthy approach to reality and life. But that Hashem is there to support us, I think is a really good idea. So that's the first time that Eis Surah is mentioned, that Hashem is our salvation in a time of distress. And time of distress, I have to get up in the morning. I mean, it can be a small or large distress, depending on how bad we were, staying up till 2 a.m. playing Sudoku. But other than that, it's whatever the Yetzer Hara might be, but that Hashem is supporting us. Okay, number 2, second time it appears, morning immersion in the mikveh. The prophet Yirmiyahu states, the mikveh of Israel will save him in a time of distress. And Hashem is referred to as Mikveh Yisrael. Isn't that interesting? That's one of the references, the names of Hashem, Mikveh Yisrael. In our context of a daily routine, this refers to immersion in a mikveh after getting up in the morning. There were many tzaddikim who would dip in the mikveh frequently, particularly in times of trouble. And I just want to share this idea that I learned from Yehudis Groner, one of my mashpiyas, my main mashpiyas in Crown Heights, and my neighbor for the 29 years that we lived there, that she said that washing hands alternately 6 times by women is like the equivalent of going to the mikveh. That's why we wash alternately 6 times, before davening. As Hasidim are very careful, like not to pick up a siddur to daven without washing their hands alternately. It's good to have a little bottle of water along with you if we're going on a little hike or something and we want to daven, because it's really good to wash the hands alternately before davening, and it's equivalent to going to the mikveh, which he's going to say. Next paragraph. Immersing in the mikveh represents annulling the ego to holiness, bittul, mavataling, nullifying the ego. So to have that as a kavanah every time, every al netilas yadayim. So we only say it with a bracha first thing in the morning and before eating bread. But anytime we wash our hands alternately before davening, before saying Tehillim, to have in mind that the kavanah is, the intention is annulling the ego to holiness. Cool, yes? As such, it offers us an opportunity to revitalize ourselves and convert the distress, tzaddik, reish, hey, of old age into an influx of divine light by opening a skylight to a new world of innovative insights. Now, the word skylight is tzaddik, hey, reish. It's the same letters. It's just rearranging the letters of tzora, distress, into tzohar, skylight. And it was actually in last week's Parshas Noach, when Noach was building the ark, the teva, that he put it so hard to illuminate it. And Rashi brings down that it could either have been a window or a precious stone that gave out light. It's interesting that they had those back then in the days of Noah, precious stone, or it could have been a window. But the idea of converting distress into opening to an influx of divine light. So we have to be open to that influx of divine light that could come our way. Okay. So, Koti, could you put your mute on? We're getting a little sound there. Thank you so much. Okay, so that's the second one, and it's interesting seeing that word sohar as a changing of the letters of Tzora. Third time, Ace Tzora appears in Tanakh, praying for compassion. The prophet Yirmiyahu also states, "If I did not pray on your behalf at an evil time and in a time of distress for the enemy." Rashi explains that this refers to the enemies of the Jewish people who will ask us to pray for them in times of distress. And so the enemies of the Jewish people are our personal enemies. God forbid that we should have enemies, but sometimes we get into kind of a little frivol, as they say in South Africa, a little misunderstanding with our friends, old friends. So I visualizing this person coming to us and asking for us to pray for them is really a healing, let alone visualizing the enemies of the Jewish people. It's very powerful. I mean, you could see that's actually what happened with Avram Avinu, that, you know, his previous enemies then would come and ask him to pray for them. So even just visualizing it, I think, softens our heart to people. If God forbid we were feeling a little bit hard-hearted, God forbid to anybody, just visualizing that person coming and asking us to pray for them and praying for them is, I think, a very healing thing. It can really lighten the burden. Okay, so we're on page 59. In our context, this refers to praying in our time of distress, which could be old age, not for ourselves, but on behalf of the entire Jewish people. And this is why so much is in the plural when we're davening. It's in the we form. You know, like the Hashamnu Bagadnu, when we're saying this after the Shemon Esrei, when tapping one's heart, it's all in the new form. We're doing it for all the Jewish people. It's say the Arizal, the very holy Arizal from the 1500s in Svat. He said it for all the Jewish people. He said it with he took responsibility. He was taking responsibility for everyone, davening for everyone. So I think we have to have that in mind. When we're davening for everybody. And it's, you know, before Baruch She'omer, before the beginning of the part of the davening, we're not supposed to talk. Afterwards, it says, for the sake of uniting Hashem and the Shekhinah, and for the sake of all the Jewish people. And so all the mitzvahs that we do, we can have in mind this idea that we're doing it on behalf of all the Jewish people. I think it's a very important idea because we're connecting ourselves. We're not separating ourselves, God forbid, from the community, but we're seeing ourselves as part of it and davening. And when I was preparing for this last night, it made me think of also this idea that we spoke about last year when we were learning transforming darkness into light. We spoke about the idea of giving Hashem credit for the good that we do, not letting the ego take credit, but giving Hashem credit for the good that we do, because that way we never get to an eskummer, as they say, it's coming to me, entitlement attitude. Because if I think I did something good for someone, then I can think that they owe me something. But if I think that Hashem did it, Hashem gave me the energy, Hashem gave me the situation, and on a more subtle level, Hashem gave me the motivation, then I can give Hashem credit. And then I don't get to ever feel it's coming to me and then be mad because I'm not, and it really sabotages life. Because if somebody has that Yiddish eskummer, it's coming to me. No one wants to do anything for such a person because they don't feel like they're doing anything. The person feels it's coming to them. So giving Hashem credit for the good that we do, and what we just learned here, when we're davening or doing an act of kindness, any mitzvah, to do it on behalf of all the Jewish people. To continue in the middle, to save them on behalf of all the Jewish people, to save them from their enemies. Prayers such as these are called the prayers of the individual, who Rabbi Nachman of Breslov calls the master of power. It's a powerful way to pray on behalf of all the Jewish people. This further relates to the phrase, a poor man speaks with supplications, but a rich man replies boldly. That's a quote from Mishlei, from Proverbs. When we have experienced a life rich with Torah study, as becomes us as servants of Hashem, we are able to approach him with such valor that the forces of evil are choked by our prayers. So it's saying to approach Hashem with courage, that when we're davening, like I never really thought of that before either, like the concept of courage. It takes, we're speaking to Hashem. I guess it takes a certain amount of courage, but to have it in mind that this is an act of courage. I'm approaching Hashem. I'm talking to God, my creator, the creator of the world. So it takes courage to do that. Okay, so we did the first three, and now for the fourth time that a time of distress is mentioned in Tanakh. Again, it's Yirmiyahu. The Navi Yirmiyahu states, it is a time of distress for Yaakov, and from it he will be saved. Following the forceful prayer of the Master of Power, we come to the ego annulment that immersing in the mikveh prepared us for. In total submission to Hashem, we fall on our faces in the Nephilas Apayim prayer. Here we fall directly into Hashem's hands to do with us as he pleases. And from this state of selflessness, our salvation sprouts. Okay, let's go over what it's saying here. First of all, Nephilas Apayim are the prayers that come after the Shemon Esrei, after the standing prayer, otherwise known as Tachnan. And that's the prayer where we go bang, bang, bang. And that's also, as everyone knows, that's when we're doing with the lulav and esrog. And during Sukkot, we bring it to the same part of our heart that we clapped on Yom Kippur, or whenever we're saying Tachnan, and what's called Nephilas Apayim, which literally means falling on our face. But it means total submission to Hashem. And you know, we spoke about also when we were learning transforming darkness into light, that it's just, you know, it's a question of putting Hashem in the center of our consciousness at any point, for whatever, even for 30 seconds, even for 10 seconds, because it means moving the ego to the side. The ego will notice quickly. It'll say, hey, wait a minute, I have something to tell you. It's very important. Worry about me. The ego will force itself back into the center of our consciousness. It takes effort to move it to the side, to say, now I want to think about God. Now I want to focus on God. I'm putting my ego aside. But we should never worry when we're putting our ego aside, that it's going to get lost. We shouldn't worry, oh no, what's going to happen to my poor ego if I put it aside? It's just going to wander off. Nope, it's going to want to come back. It's 100% guaranteed. So ego annulment is a temporary thing, but it's just having the idea that we want to fall into Hashem's hands. I think that's a beautiful idea if we're saying this Hashamnu Bagadnu, we're saying this Tachnan after the Shemon Esrei, that we're falling into Hashem's hands and that he can do with us as he pleases. I guess that's really, it's giving ourselves over. It's having a emunah. If I give myself over to Hashem to do with me as he pleases, that he's gonna love me and take care of me and support me and give me insight and help me answer my questions and help me approach my challenges in life. So to fall directly into Hashem's hands, I like that idea. It's something to think about in the davening, to fall into Hashem's hands. It's very touching. And from this, our salvation sprouts. This is the direction. If we're looking for salvation, fall into Hashem's hands. And this is the kavanah. Okay, so that's the fourth time that fourth time that Asura appears. Okay, now we're up to the fifth time, going out into the world. So the book of Tehillim, the book of Psalms states, the salvation of the righteous is from Hashem, who is their stronghold in a time of distress. That's, by the way, chapter 37, line 39. And I'm just to mention, there's a Chabad custom, I'm sure other people do it too, but in the first letter that I ever got from the Rebbe 47 years ago, one of the things the Rebbe mentioned was to say my kapitel of Tehillim every day, and I was 26 at the time. I think I've mentioned it before, so it was the 27th kapitel. And it's something we also do for other people. When we daven for someone, we say the kapitel, the chapter of Tehillim that they'll be on their next birthday. So if you've ever been 36 or you're davening, if you are 36, so, so it's this, so it's again, the salvation of the righteous is from Hashem, who is their stronghold in a time of distress. Here the verse matches distress with strength, stronghold. During davening, during prayers, when we express our own strength of mind in the face of the distress experienced by the Jewish people, we are filled with holy boldness. And again, courage. Again, the davening should give us courage. Courage is such a useful, it's such a useful quality to have in life. I mean, everything takes courage, I mean, saying davening takes courage. But certainly speaking to people, taking care of what we need to take care of, courage. So during davening, we express our strength of mind in the face of the distress experienced by the Jewish people, and we are filled with courage. It is this quality that gives us the power to step out after our davening into the bustle of life, armed with the will to act and the ability to state the truth in front of skeptics without embarrassment. So this does take courage, depending on the situation. The situations where it's very hard. I mean, I find personally that spiritually, on spiritual issues, it's much easier for me. It's much easier to me to give over ideas of Hasidus. Politically, it's harder for me. I mean, in a situation, but stating the truth. It takes courage to state the truth, even if it's not politically correct. It takes a lot of courage to say something that's not politically correct. Of course, it has to be, the Rebbe would say, you often use the expression, ba'ofen hamakabel. It has to be in the way of the receiver. It has to be in a way that somebody can receive it and take it in. It's not just saying something true. It's thinking about how to say it in a way that the receiver can actually receive it. But still, it takes courage to even begin to want to do that. It takes, and it's saying, so it's saying that this kapitel of Tehillim, this line, chapter 37, line 39, it's Hashem who's our stronghold in a time of distress, and we expressed our own strength of mind. Okay, so we're going to do the last of the 6, and then we'll just review because our time is moving on. Okay, so the 6th one is disseminating Torah. It's from the book of Daniel, the last chapter, actually, the 12th chapter, which is a lot about the coming of Mashiach. So it contains this prophecy, quote, "It will be a time of distress that never was, since a nation existed until then, and at that time your people will escape, everyone who was found inscribed in the book," end quote, this quote from Daniel. So this refers to all those who have a letter inscribed in a Torah scroll, which means all Jews who will flee by clinging to their root in Torah. I have footnote 13 circled. That's on page 163 on the top. The word Yisroel, Yud, Sin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed, is an acronym for the phrase, there are 600,000 letters in the Torah, Yeshishim Riboy Osios LaTorah, indicating that every Jewish soul has a corresponding letter in a Torah scroll. I mean, there's an idea that of buying a letter, they usually have for $1, you can buy a letter in the Sefer Torah, but even besides whether or not you've already purchased one, there's the idea that our soul has a connection. Every soul has a connection with a letter in the Torah. And we can cling to this letter because it's connected to the root of our soul. This also relates to the time of day when we disseminate the well springs of Hasidus by helping each and every Jew discover his or her letter in the Torah, which means helping each Jew connect with it. It's a mitzvah to help a Jew connect with the Torah. After all our previous boldness, this is the time of day when Hashem is happy with the souls of the Jewish people, and they rejoice with him. Our souls, the souls of the Jewish people, rejoice with Hashem. We are obliged to add as many souls as possible to participate in these joyful moments. Like right now, we're learning Torah, and we're learning this, and this is helping our souls connect with its root in the Torah. It's so exciting. I'm very excited, and to have more and more people. Right now we have 20 people at this moment, and we're all connecting. So these are the 6 times. So I just want to review, because I learned from Y.Y. Jacobson that when you're teaching, tell them what you're going to say, then say it, and then tell them what you said. See, anyone? Well, now we have 21 people even. It's getting even more joyful. Hashem is rejoicing even more. Okay. So let's go over what we just learned in our remaining 4 minutes, or maybe 3, because we have to take that picture for the Rav. Okay, so first we learned about mezuzahs. So mezuzahs have 2 Zions in them, and the Zion is connected with memory and aging, because Zachar and Zakein, both of these words begin with a Zion. And the mezuzah has in it Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And by touching the mezuzah, the idea is to remember Hashem when we're going into the room and coming out of the room, going into our house and out of the house. And this is, again, the homework assignment. It's hard if we haven't made the habit of we all know people who are very machmir, very careful about touching the mezuzah. So I want to get to be more like those people, at least once a day, to touch the mezuzah, right? And remember Hashem. Okay, so, and remembering Hashem is the antidote to forgetfulness. Forgetting Hashem is the source of all forgetfulness. So we want to remember Hashem by touching. That's why we're touching the mezuzah, is to remember Hashem. Okay. And it's the right side as we go into the room and the left side as we go out of the room. So you get to exercise both hands. Okay, then we got up to chapter 6 in our review, making Torah study a routine, that it's good to have a Seder. It's good. A Seder actually means order. It's good to be organized. Okay, so and that idea that it's very deep in Hasidus. The Alter Rebbe wanted his Hasidim to be organized, and that's a Hayom Yom. Okay, then we get to this idea of Ace Sora, a time of distress, which appears 6 times in all the Bible, all Tanakh, and we went through those 6 times. And the first is to remember in the morning, first thing in the morning, that Hashem is our salvation in a time of distress, as Yeshayahu said, and to remember when we get up that Hashem is taking our hand and helping us out of bed. Yes, clearing our mind. It helps. We need that, don't you think? It's so helpful. Hashem helping me stand up. Hashem is there to support us. Then the idea of immersion in the mikveh, and again, which is equivalent to washing our hands alternately. I mean, women, it's not, women have to go to the mikveh when they have to. That's the right time of life, once a month or whatever, it's relevant. But we can do the yotzi on the mikveh each time we wash our hands 6 times, and it's good to do it before davening. Then the third thing is davening for compassion, and the idea of davening for our enemies. Davening for our enemies is a very healing activity. And when we're doing any mitzvah, or when we're davening, when we're praying, that we're doing it on behalf of the entire Jewish people. And then the fourth one is, again, it's a quote from Yirmiyahu, this idea of nefilas apayim, falling on our faces when we say Hashem, that we're falling into the arms of Hashem. And that the ego annulment is that we're saying to Hashem, here I am, do with me as you wish. It should be good things, but it's just falling into Hashem's hands. And from here, salvation sprouts. And the fifth one is from Tehillim, that Hashem is our stronghold in time of distress, strength of mind and courage, that we should have the courage to speak the truth. And then we have the last one is from Daniel, that to cling to our root in the Torah, that every Jew has a root in the Torah, and Hashem is happy when we help Jewish people connect with their root in the Torah, and he rejoices with us, and we rejoice with him. Oh, it's 9:15. So let's just take our picture. We have a lovely group of 22 people here. So this is going to be our get well picture that Rav Yitzchak Feibel, then Brian and Malka should have a total refuah shalema, because we need him and we love him, and we've already learned so much from him, and it should continue for many, many years.